At my son's funeral reception, my daughter-in-law leaned close and whispered, "You have until 6 p.m. tomorrow to pack your things and leave my house." I'm Gerald Wilson. I'm 69 years old. I looked at her designer dress, the one that cost more than my monthly Social Security check, and I said, "Okay." Then I decided to show her exactly who she'd been underestimating for the past 3 years. But before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you something. If you're reading this from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please stay with me until the end, because what I discovered in that safety deposit box, well, let's just say my son Leonard knew exactly what kind of woman he'd married. The phone rang at 3:17 in the morning on a Tuesday. I knew before I answered it. Fathers always know. "Dad?" Leonard's voice was strained, breathless, wrong. "Dad, something's wrong. My chest, I can't—" The line went dead. I was in my car, within 4 minutes. 45 years as an auto mechanic teaches you to function through panic. The drive to County General took 12 minutes. I prayed every second of it. When I pushed through those emergency room doors at 3:41 a.m., I already knew. Dr. Stanley's face told me everything. Young man, couldn't have been more than 35. Tired eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Mr. Wilson," he said quietly, "I'm so sorry. We did everything we could, but it was a massive heart attack. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. It was very quick. He didn't suffer." That's what they always say. Like knowing your 47-year-old son's heart just stopped is somehow easier if it happened fast. I stood there in that sterile hallway and couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except remember. Leonard, at 5 years old, helping me change oil in the shop. Leonard at 23, graduating from Georgia Tech with his computer engineering degree. Leonard at 44, after Helen's funeral, insisting I come live with him, and Patricia. "Just temporary, Dad. You shouldn't be in that big house alone anymore." That had been 3 years ago. "Would you like to see him?" Dr. Stanley asked. Leonard was on a gurney covered with a white sheet. His face was peaceful. I took his hand. It was already cold. "I'm sorry, son," I whispered. I don't know what I was apologizing for not being there, for failing at the one job that mattered most. The door opened. Oh my God, Leonard. Patricia stood in the doorway, one hand pressed to her mouth. She was wearing yoga pants and an expensive pullover, her blonde hair in a messy bun. No makeup. Her face was pale, shocked. For a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw something else in her expression. Something that wasn't grief. Relief? No, I was imagining things. Grief does that. "Patricia, honey." I moved toward her, my arms out. She didn't step into my embrace. She stood rigid, her blue eyes fixed on Leonard's body. "What happens now?" she whispered. An odd question, but people say strange things when they're in shock. "Now we make arrangements. We call family. With the house." Her eyes cut to me, sharp and focused. "The house is in Leonard's name. What happens to it now?" I stared at her. "Patricia, he's not even—" "I need to know, Gerald." Her voice was flat, controlled. "Leonard's gone, and I have decisions to make." Leonard's gone. Not my husband, not the man I loved. Just gone, like he was a problem that had been solved. A chill ran through me. "Of course, dear. We'll figure it out together." Patricia's jaw tightened. "We'll see about that." She turned and walked out. I should have known then. Should have recognized the warning in those words. The next 3 days passed in a blur of arrangements. I offered to help pay for the funeral. Leonard had been my only child. Everything I'd ever worked for should have gone toward giving him a proper goodbye. But Patricia wouldn't hear of it. "I'm his wife, Gerald. I know what Leonard would have wanted. I'll handle the arrangements." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You focus on being there, greeting people, family things." Family things? as if planning my own son's funeral wasn't a family thing. The funeral was beautiful. Oak Grove Baptist Church was filled with white roses. Pastor Howard Carter delivered a eulogy that had half the congregation in tears. I sat in the front pew, dry-eyed and numb. Patricia sat beside me in a black dress that probably cost $3,000. She dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, played the grieving widow perfectly. After the service, there was a reception in the fellowship hall. I stood in a receiving line for 2 hours, accepting condolences. He was such a good man. At least it was quick. The platitudes rolled over me like waves. I smiled, nodded, said thank you until the words lost all meaning. At some point, I needed air. I slipped out the side door into the church garden and sat on a stone bench. The life insurance alone will cover the mortgage for 2 years. My eyes snapped open. The voice was coming from the other side of the rose bushes. Patricia's voice, casual like she was discussing the weather. And without the extra expenses, she continued, I can actually start saving again. What about Gerald? A woman's voice, Linda Miller, Patricia's sister. Patricia laughed, sharp, brittle. That's not my problem anymore, Linda. He can figure it out like the rest of us adults. I've been supporting him for 3 years. I'm done. My blood went cold. Supporting me. Won't people talk if you just kick him out? People can think what they want. He's been living in my house rent-free, eating my food. Leonard felt sorry for him, but I don't. The second the life insurance clears, he's out. I sat frozen on that bench. I'd sold my house for $125,000 3 years ago, given Leonard and Patricia $50,000 for their down payment. I'd paid $500 a month in household expenses. I'd cooked, cleaned, done grocery shopping. I thought I was contributing. Apparently, Patricia saw it differently. When are you going to tell him? Linda asked. Right after the reception. I've already contacted a realtor. We can get at least $450,000 for the house. With the insurance money, I can buy that condo downtown. Fresh start. What about Leonard's things? Estate sale, most of it. I'm not dragging his past into my future. There was a pause. Then Linda said quietly, You never loved him, did you? Don't be dramatic. I loved what he could provide. That's what marriage is. He got a wife who looked good at company events. I got financial security. It was a fair trade. And now I'm free. I sat in that garden for a long time, trying to understand what I'd just heard. My daughter-in-law had just reduced my son's entire life to a fair trade. That evening, Patricia came downstairs. She'd changed into jeans. Her makeup was gone. She looked younger, harder. Gerald, we need to talk. Of course, dear. Sit down. I'd rather stand. I'm going to be direct. This house is in Leonard's name, which means it's mine now, and I need time and space without complications. Complications. That's what I was now. I understand you're grieving, but surely. No, I've made my decision. You living here isn't working anymore. I need my privacy. Patricia, I've been living here for 3 years. Where do you expect me to go? She shrugged. You're a grown man. You'll figure something out. Social Security, your pension. You have resources. $2,200 a month total in a city where rent started at $1,200. How long? My voice was steady. 45 years of dealing with difficult customers taught me not to fall apart. Until tomorrow evening, 6 p.m. That should be plenty of time. Leonard would be horrified by this conversation. Leonard's dead, and the sooner you accept that, the better off we'll both be. 24 hours to pack up 3 years of my life. I packed my entire life into 4 suitcases and 2 cardboard boxes. 69 years reduced to what would fit in the trunk of my 2010 Ford pickup. As I folded my clothes, I kept expecting Patricia to knock on the door, to say she'd spoken in grief and anger. She never came. At exactly 6 p.m. the next evening, there was a knock on my bedroom door. Patricia stood there checking her watch. "Time's up, Gerald." We made 3 trips in silence. Patricia carried a box each time, her face expressionless. She wanted to make sure I actually left. When I loaded the last suitcase, I turned to look at her. "Will you at least tell me if there's going to be a reading of Leonard's will?" Patricia's laugh was short and sharp. "Why would he leave you anything? You're not his wife, and it's not like you ever contributed financially to this household." The irony was so sharp it made me smile. The $50,000 I'd given them for the down payment might disagree, but clearly Patricia had either forgotten or convinced herself it had been a gift. Of course. Silly of me to assume. I got into my truck and backed down the driveway. In my rearview mirror, I watched Patricia stand there until I turned the corner. The Motel 6 on Route 9 had rooms for $65 a night. I checked in for a week and carried my suitcases to room 127. It smelled like industrial cleaning products and stale cigarettes. The TV was bolted to the dresser. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at myself in the mirror. Who was this man? A widower at 66, childless now at 69, homeless and apparently worthless in the eyes of the only family he had left. 2 weeks into my motel stay, just as I was starting to worry about my dwindling savings, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Gerald Wilson?" "Yes." "This is attorney Beverly Hayes from Hayes and Associates. I handled your son Leonard's legal affairs." My heart skipped. "Yes, I remember. I'm calling to inform you that the probate process has been completed, and there will be a formal reading of Leonard's will next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Your presence is required." "Required?" I think there might be some confusion. Patricia seemed to think, "Mr. Wilson." Beverly's voice was gentle but firm. "Leonard's will specifically names you as a beneficiary. I'll see you next Tuesday." She gave me the address and hung up. Leonard had left me something after all. Probably something small. Maybe his father's tools or a few $1,000s. Tuesday afternoon arrived with bright autumn sunshine. At 1:45, I sat in my truck in the parking lot of Hayes and Associates, watching the front door. At 1:50, a white Mercedes SUV pulled into the lot. Patricia. She emerged wearing a black dress from Nordstrom's catalog. Her blonde hair was swept up perfectly. Diamond studs glittered in her ears. Linda Miller, Patricia's sister, got out the passenger side. They stood talking quietly, Linda showing Patricia something on her phone. They both smiled. Planning their victory, probably. I waited until they'd gone inside before getting out. Deep breath, shoulders back. Don't let them see you rattled. The reception area was elegant. Dark wood floors, leather chairs, oil paintings. Patricia and Linda were seated in the waiting area. When I walked in, Patricia's head snapped up. "What is he doing here?" Her voice was sharp with surprise. The receptionist looked up calmly. "Mr. Wilson is here for the will reading." "Which Mr. Wilson?" Patricia stood up. "Both of you, apparently." I watched Patricia's face cycle through confusion, anger, and calculation. She whispered something to Linda. At exactly 2 p.m., attorney Beverly Hayes emerged. She was in her early 50s with gray-streaked brown hair and sharp eyes behind reading glasses. She wore a navy suit that meant business. "Mr. Wilson, Mrs. Wilson, please come in." The conference room had a long oak table and high-backed leather chairs. Beverly took her place at the head. Patricia sat on one side, Linda beside her. I sat opposite them. The door opened again. Pastor Howard Carter walked in wearing his Sunday suit. When he saw me, his eyes crinkled with a sad smile. "Pastor Howard, what are you?" "Leonard asked me to be here as a witness," he said quietly, taking the seat beside me. Beverly opened a leather folder and pulled out several documents. "This is the last will and testament of Leonard James Wilson, executed on June 15, 2024. 4 months ago. Leonard had updated his will 4 months ago. Beverly continued reading. To my beloved wife, Patricia Marie Wilson, I leave the following. The house located at 847 Maple Street, with all furnishings and fixtures, the 2022 Mercedes-Benz SUV, and the 2019 Honda Accord. My life insurance policy through TechCore Solutions with a death benefit of $250,000. My 401k retirement account with an approximate value of $180,000, and my checking and savings accounts with a combined balance of approximately $45,000. Patricia sat forward, listening intently. In total, Mrs. Patricia Wilson will inherit assets valued at approximately $925,000. Linda squeezed Patricia's hand. Patricia allowed herself a small smile. Then Beverly's voice changed, became more careful. However, there is one additional provision that Leonard added 3 months ago, on July 20th, 2024. Patricia stopped smiling, leaned forward. What provision? Beverly looked directly at me. To my father, Gerald Wilson, who gave me life, who raised me with love and sacrifice, I leave the contents of safety deposit box number 4721 at First National Bank, along with all associated documentation, account information, and legal papers contained therein. Silence. Then Patricia's voice, sharp as broken glass. What safety deposit box? Something Leonard maintained privately for the past 5 years. He was very specific that the contents should go to his father. What's in it? Linda demanded. I have no idea. Leonard simply provided the bank information. The contents are sealed. Was completely competent when he added it. When exactly did he add this? I found my voice. Beverly consulted her notes. July 20th, 2024. He came to my office specifically to make this addition. He was very determined that it be done correctly. July 20th. 2 days after Patricia's birthday party. Leonard had been quiet, distracted. He'd hugged me tight and said, I love you, Dad. Don't ever forget that. Beverly pulled out a sealed manila envelope with my name in Leonard's handwriting. The bank will need to verify the death certificate. Usually takes 3 business days. Then you can access the box. Patricia's eyes were fixed on the envelope like a hawk watching prey. I'm coming with you to the bank. I'm afraid that's not possible. The safety deposit box access is restricted to Mr. Gerald Wilson only. Bank policy. This is insane. How do we even know there's anything valuable in there? I stood up, clutching the envelope. I suppose we'll find out next week. Patricia stepped in front of me. Her voice became softer, reasonable. Gerald, let's be rational. Whatever's in that box, we should share it. Leonard would have wanted his wife to benefit. I looked at her, at the designer dress and diamond earrings. You made it very clear that you don't believe Leonard would have left me anything. Now suddenly you're concerned about sharing? You're saying whatever you think will get you access to that safety deposit box. But Leonard was very specific. The contents are mine. Patricia's mask slipped completely. Her face twisted with anger. Don't forget, Gerald, you're homeless. You're living in a motel on Social Security. You need my goodwill more than I need yours. I paused in the doorway and looked back. Actually, Patricia, I don't think I need anything from you at all. Monday morning, October 16th, I arrived at First National Bank at 9:45. I'd barely slept, kept thinking about Leonard, about what he might have left me, about why he'd kept it secret for 5 years. Mrs. Howard met me in the lobby. Mr. Wilson, right on time, if you'll follow me. She led me through the main floor to a heavy steel door marked Safe Deposit Boxes, Authorized Access Only. Inside was a narrow hallway lined with metal boxes. Box 4721 is one of our larger units, Mrs. Howard said, stopping in front of a box about the size of a briefcase. I'll use my master key, and you'll use your key. My hands were shaking as I pulled out the brass key Leonard had left me. We inserted our keys simultaneously. The lock turned smoothly. Mrs. Howard slid the box out. It was heavy, surprisingly heavy. "Take all the time you need," she said, showing me to a small, windowless room. "I'll be at my desk when you're finished." I was alone with whatever Leonard had left me. I lifted the lid. The first thing I saw was a letter, white envelope, my name in Leonard's handwriting. "Dad." My vision blurred. I picked up the envelope with trembling fingers and opened it. "Dearest Dad, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and I'm so sorry for leaving you. But you need to know the truth. I've known who Patricia really is for the past 4 years. I discovered she was manipulating both of us, telling you that you were a burden, telling me that you were financially draining us, all while spending my money on luxury items and planning your removal. Why didn't I divorce her? Dad, I was weak. She threatened that if I left her, she'd make sure you never saw me again. She said she'd move us across the country, change our numbers, cut you out completely. She knew how much you meant to me, and she used it as a weapon. I couldn't bear the thought of losing you, so I stayed. But I planned. 5 years ago, I took the $50,000 you gave us for the down payment. You thought it was a gift. I knew it was a loan. I saw it in your eyes. I invested every penny. Tech stocks, index funds. I added $300 every month from my discretionary account. Money Patricia thought I was spending on golf? Dad, that $50,000 has grown to $125,000. It's all in accounts under your name, your social security number. Patricia doesn't know it exists. I had to stop reading. $125,000. Leonard had taken my $50,000 and more than doubled it, and he'd done it in secret for 5 years while living with a woman planning to throw me out. In this box, you'll find 5 years of documentation. Text messages where Patricia calls you degrading names. Emails to her sister planning to get rid of the old man. Credit card statements showing $78,000 in luxury purchases over the past 3 years, while she told me we needed to cut back. A recording of her telling Linda she married me for stability, not love. Dad, please don't feel guilty. None of this is your fault. You raised a son who loved you more than anything in this world. Protecting you was the one thing I got right. Take this money. Buy yourself a home. Live in peace. And know that every investment I made, every document I saved, it was all because I wanted you to be safe when I was gone. All my love. Forever and always, your son, Leonard P.S. Don't tell Patricia about any of this until you're ready. Let her reveal herself first, then show her who she's been dealing with. I sat in that small room and cried. Not desperate sobs. These were tears of grief and gratitude mixed together. My son had known everything, and he'd built me a future. I looked at the rest of the contents. There was a USB drive labeled Video Watch First, a leather notebook with dates and entries, thick folders labeled Documentation Bank Statements, Documentation Emails and Texts, Documentation Credit Cards, and underneath everything, investment account statements, Vanguard Total Stock Market Index, account holder, Gerald Wilson. Balance, $52,341.67. Fidelity Growth Company Fund. Account holder, Gerald Wilson. Balance, $38,892.33. Charles Schwab S. and P 500 Index. Account holder, Gerald Wilson. Balance, $33,766. $125,000. Exactly what Leonard had written. I opened the leather notebook. The first entry was dated July 20th, 2019. Vanessa told Linda today that Dad is cramping her style. She wants me to ask Dad to move out. I said no. She got angry and said I care more about my father than my wife. She's right. I do. I need to start documenting this. Page after page, 5 years of documentation. August 3rd, 2019. Patricia told me Dad's $500 contribution barely covers utilities. I checked the bills. Utilities average $180 per month. November 2nd, 2019. Patricia spent $3,200 at Neiman Marcus. Told me we can't afford to fix Dad's car. $600 repair. January 8th, 2020. Patricia asked me to take out a life insurance policy. Suggested $250,000. Said it's just smart planning. Asterisk hundreds of entries. The picture was devastating. Patricia hadn't just been cruel. She'd been calculating, strategic, building toward this moment for years. And Leonard had seen all of it. I opened the folder labeled Emails and Texts. The first printout was an email from Patricia to Linda, dated March 3rd, 2023. Subject: The Gerald Problem. Diane, I'm at my wit's end. Gerald is still here. It's been 3 years. Michael keeps making excuses. She's looking for a place. She's on a fixed income. Meanwhile, I'm stuck playing hostess to a man who judges everything I do. Something has to change. Linda's response: Have you thought about what happens if Leonard, something happened? If he had a heart attack or something, the house would be yours, right? And then Gerald would have to leave. Patricia's reply: Actually, that's not a bad point. When he dies, it goes to me as his spouse. The life insurance is $250,000 plus his 401k. I could sell the house for at least $400,000. That's nearly $800,000. And Gerald would have exactly zero claim to any of it. Asterisk. She'd been planning this for at least a year and a half before Leonard died. I spent 90 minutes reading through everything. Credit card statements showing Patricia's spending. Mortgage statements showing automatic payment from Leonard's account. Bank statements showing every one of my $500 contributions being transferred to Leonard's investment account. And finally, one more document. A notarized statement dated August 1st, 2024. I, Leonard James Wilson, being of sound mind and body, do hereby state that the investment accounts detailed below were funded with money given to me by my father, Gerald Wilson, in June 2020. This money was always understood by both parties to be a loan, not a gift. I invested this money on his behalf over the past 5 years. These accounts are held in his name and social security number. They are not part of my marital assets and should not be considered part of my estate. Leonard had thought of everything. Every possible angle Patricia might use to contest this, he'd blocked. He'd protected me completely. I gathered all the documents carefully and carried the box out to Mrs. Howard's desk. 20 minutes later, I walked out of First National Bank with account access to $125,000 and a plan. It was time to have lunch with Patricia. I called Patricia from the parking lot of First National Bank. She answered on the first ring. Gerald, did you go to the bank? I did. Silence, then carefully. And? I think you were right. We should talk. Maybe over lunch. Are you free today? Today. Her voice rose with eagerness. Yes, absolutely. Where? Your house. Noon. I'll bring something. That sounds wonderful, Gerald. I'll see you at noon. At 11:45, I pulled into the driveway of 847 Maple Street. The house looked the same as when Patricia had thrown me out 3 weeks ago. Perfect lawn, trimmed hedges. My house, bought with my $50,000. Patricia opened the door before I could knock. She was wearing white slacks and a silk blouse. Her makeup was perfect. Her smile was warm. Gerald, come in. I'm so glad you called. The dining room table was set with her wedding china. Fresh flowers, linen napkins. She'd gone to a lot of trouble. This is beautiful, Patricia. I wanted today to be special, a fresh start for us. She gestured to the table. Please sit. We ate in silence for a few minutes. The chicken salad was actually quite good. So, Patricia said finally, the bank. Did they let you access the safety deposit box? They did. She leaned forward slightly. What was inside? Documents, mostly. Very interesting reading material. What kind of documents? Financial records, investment statements, some correspondence. I paused. And quite a few emails and text messages. The color drained from Patricia's face. Text messages? Leonard was quite thorough in his record-keeping. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo I'd taken. It was a text from Patricia to Linda, dated March 15th, 2024. God, I can't wait until that old man finally moves out. Then we can turn his room into the home office I've been wanting. Leonard keeps making excuses for him. So annoying. Patricia stared at the screen. Where did you get that? From the safety deposit box. Leonard saved everything. I swiped to the next image. This one's interesting too. Another text from April. Gerald actually asked if he should contribute more to household expenses. LOL. I told him $500 per month barely covers his utilities. Leonard pays the mortgage anyway. But he doesn't need to know that. Stop. Patricia's voice was barely a whisper. This is an email you sent Linda last November. I read aloud. Leonard's life insurance is $250,000. If something happens to him, I'm set. The old man will be out within 24 hours. Patricia lunged for my phone, but I pulled it back. These are just copies. Leonard saved originals of everything. 5 years' worth of documentation. Patricia sat back, her face pale. He had no right. He had every right. I set my phone down. You want to know what else? Leonard documented your spending. I spread credit card statements across the table. Nordstrom, $3,200. Saks Fifth Avenue, $2,800. Neiman Marcus, $4,100. In 6 months before Leonard died, you spent $78,000 on luxury purchases while telling him you were worried about money. Patricia was crying now, real tears ruining her makeup. You don't understand what it's like growing up with nothing. Stop. My voice was sharp. You think I don't understand poverty? I grew up in Depression-era Ohio. My father lost his job when I was 10. I know what it's like to have nothing. I stood up. But my father taught me something. He said, son, being poor is about money. Being broke is about character. You can have all the money in the world, Patricia, but you'll always be broke where it matters. What are you going to do? I pulled out the investment statements. I'm going to tell you what Leonard left me. $125,000. That's what my $50,000 loan became in Leonard's hands. Her eyes scanned the numbers. Her face went white. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to keep this house, the insurance, everything Leonard left you. I won't contest any of it. Hope flickered in her eyes. But you're going to do 3 things within 72 hours. 1. You will never contact me again. 2. You will make an appointment with a therapist and actually do the work. 3. You will donate $10,000 to the Trade Scholarship Fund at the community college in Leonard's name. 72 hours, I repeated, or I share every document with your friends, your family, everyone. I walked to the door. Gerald, Patricia called out, her voice small. Was any of it real? Did Leonard ever actually love me? I looked at her for a long moment. Yes, he loved the woman he thought you were, and that's the real tragedy. You could have had a man who loved you unconditionally, but you saw him as a meal ticket. I stepped through the door. Live with that. 6 months later, I was sitting on the back porch of my small house on Oak Street, watching the sunrise over my vegetable garden. The house was mine. Paid cash. $110,000, leaving me with enough savings to live comfortably. My phone rang. Unknown number. Gerald? It's Patricia. I know you said not to contact you, but I needed to tell you something. I've been going to therapy twice a week. Dr. Morrison is helping me understand why I became who I became. It doesn't excuse what I did, but I'm trying to be better. I looked out at the garden Leonard would never see. I'm glad you're getting help, Patricia. I also started volunteering at a women's shelter. And I want you to know, I forgive you. Not because you've earned it, but because carrying anger would poison what Leonard gave me. Thank you, Gerald. Take care of yourself, Patricia. 1 year later, the Leonard Wilson Memorial Scholarship had helped 4 students learn trades that would support them for life. I taught engine repair twice a week at the community college. On Sundays, I cooked dinner for Pastor Howard and his wife. I was 70 years old. I lived in a small house. I drove an old truck. And I was richer than I'd ever been because I'd learned what my father tried to teach me. Being rich is about knowing who you are and what you're worth. Leonard had known my worth, and he'd made sure that when he was gone, I'd never forget it. I raised my coffee cup to the sunrise. Thank you, son, for everything. Because I'd finally learned the difference between being valued and being valuable. One depends on others' opinions, the other comes from the legacy you build and the love you leave behind. And sometimes, the greatest gift a father can give his son isn't money or property. It's teaching him how to protect the people who matter most, even from beyond the grave.